latest figures from the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics show a danger signal over the Nigeria economy. Nigeria's inflation rate now stands at 19.64%, the highest experienced in many years. And William Ruto becomes the president-elect in Kenya. It was declared earlier today. What are the lessons for Nigeria as we head towards the 2023 presidential election? Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimbaloye in Abuja. Let's continue our countdown. We will not stop until this is resolved, and it's about the ASUU strike. Now, it's 184 days since university lecturers have down tools and they've left the classrooms with students idle. The university lecturers on the 14th of February began their strike action indefinitely, asking federal government to meet their demands. So many of those demands, but the standoff between the federal government and the university lecturers continue, and the students continue to be idle. President Buhari is giving 2 weeks ultimatum to the Minister of Education last month to ensure the standoff is resolved. Nigerians now look forward to the stakeholders getting their acts together to resolve what has become a national embarrassment. But not so good news as far as the Nigeria's economy is concerned. The Consumer Price Index, the CPI, which measures the rate of change in prices of goods and services, surged to 19.64% in July 2022. It came up from 18.60% in the previous month. The rate is the highest recorded since September 2005. The National Bureau of Statistics, the NBS, says today that in its Consumer Price Index CPI report for July 2022, the figure is also 2.27% points higher compared to the rate recorded in July 2021, which was 17.38%. Tonight, we'd like to know what exactly is going wrong. 1 month ago, the president gave an order to the Minister of Education that the ASUU strike needs to be resolved. We've not heard anything. What is going on? ASUU on the 1st of August says that they will extend the strike action by another 4 weeks. Now, the year is going to an end. The students are idle. The classrooms are shut. Where do we go from here? When we come back from some of these stories that we'll be telling you, we'll be getting deeper into the matter and perhaps a way out of this quagmire. But let's serve you with some of your political roundup stories.
The PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar returned to a rousing welcome in his home state of Adamawa. The Nuhu Ribadu Square came alive as the former vice president was welcomed. The PDP presidential candidate, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, had appointed the governor of Adamawa State, Umar Fintiri, as the chairman reconciliatory committee representing Atiku camp to find a lasting solution between Governor Nyesom Wike and himself and other rifts within the party.
Let me also use this opportunity to thank you all for your support in my political career.
The Osun State Independent Electoral Commission has said it will conduct the local government elections across Osun State on October 15, 2022. Chairman of the Commission, Otumba Olusegun Oladunton, while briefing journalists at the Commission headquarters in Osogbo on the poll, noted that the Commission is now operating on the newly passed and assented Osun State Electoral Act 2022. He said the Commission has also held parley with the political parties to brief them on the process. The Osun State Governor-elect Ademola Adeleke has vowed to defend and retain his electoral victory before the Election Petition Tribunal. He gave the assurance while receiving over 500 members of the APC supporters who decamped to PDP in Obokun local government area held in Ijebu-Isha. He maintained that his emergence as governor-elect was entrenched in total compliance with the law and the will of the people.
I had ready to go to court, but I can tell you, he's dead on the right.
A coalition of civil society organizations in Abuja is partnering with the National Information Technology Development Agency, NITSDA, on how to combat vote buying and voter apathy in the 2023 general elections. The project mobilizes young Nigerians with information and communications technology expertise to build tech solutions that will enable citizens and government agencies track the voting process in 2023.
At the end of today's event, we shall witness civic tech solutions to eliminate the irregularities and fraudulent practices.
Some members of the People's Democratic Party in Abuja Municipal Area Council, AMAC, have described the tribunal judgment that sacked the recently elected chairman, Mr. Christopher Zaka, as shocking and unacceptable. Addressing journalists at the party secretariat in Abuja, chairman of the AMAC Candidates Forum calls on the National Judicial Council to look into the judgment, which they say is unfair. An electoral tribunal in Abuja had last week sacked Mr. Zaka, the PDP candidate, who was earlier declared winner of the February 12th AMAC Area Council chairmanship election, a judgment that the embattled chairman to challenge at the appeal court.
We are calling on the National Judicial Council to look into this judgment so as to prevent the future miscarriage.
The 2023 executive budget proposal will be submitted to the National Assembly by September 2022. That's according to the Director General Budget Office of the Federation, Mr. Ben Akabueze, who was speaking at the commencement of a two-day nationwide training on budget preparation organized for over 4,000 personnel drawn from about 900 ministries, departments and agencies of the government held in Abuja. Youth under the auspices of the Warri Elite Indigenous Development Foundation are encouraging all the Nigerians to be part of the electioneering process, especially as the 2023 general elections draw near. The group, during a press conference in Warri, Delta State, addresses key political issues ahead of the 2023 elections, pledging to support every youth campaigning for various political offices across the country. A federal high court sitting in Damaturu, the Yobe state capital, has adjourned the hearing of a suit between Bashir Sheriff Mechina versus the All Progressives Congress APC and two others to the 12th of September 2022. The presiding judge, Justice Fadima Murtara Aminu, revealed that the adjournment was to allow the defense counsel to complete all the necessary processes before the rescheduled date. The prosecuting counsel, Mr. Ibrahim Bawa, is asking the court to direct the Independent National Electoral Commission to recognize the name of the plaintiff, Bashir Mechina, as the authentic candidate for the APC Yobe North Senatorial District. The Abia State governorship candidate of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, Mr. Greg Ibe, says the health care of the people of the state will be his major priority if elected as governor come 2023. Mr. Ibe, who was represented by his deputy governorship candidate, Obina Ichita, stated this while presenting medical relief items to sick and aged people in Ohafia for Abia North Senatorial District of the state. And the governor of Ogun State, Dakwa Abiodun, has challenged women in the state to take advantage of the state-owned cooperative scheme tagged Okowo Dakbo to improve their businesses, reduce poverty, as well as be self-reliant. He gave the charge in Abeokuta, the state capital, shortly after a validation exercise by facilitators of the cooperative scheme.
They now teach them a saving culture. They teach them how to save weekly.
Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Let's get talking about our first conversation tonight. And it's about the ASUU strike. Aren't you tired? For a lot of students who have been at home for the last almost 200 days must be tired by now. In fact, the lecturers perhaps also tired fighting. Let me give you an understanding of how this journey began so that you can get an understanding of where we're coming from and where perhaps we're headed. Now, on the 14th of February, 2022, then this is a timeline that will help our conversation tonight. Also be embarked on the industrial action, which they say it's going to be indefinite. They want the federal government to listen to their demands, which they've been dragging for several years. On the 11th of July, 2022, President Muhammadu Buhari tells ASUU, quote, enough is enough for keeping students at home. He was saying this in Daura when some of the governors of the APC visited him. On the 19th of July 2022, President Buhari orders Education Minister to resolve dispute, giving 2 weeks ultimatum to the Minister of Education. And on the 26th of July, 2022, the Nigerian Labour staged a nationwide solidarity protest over this ASUU strike. And on the 1st of August, ASUU extends strike action by 4 weeks. You have what is a timeline that can help you understand the issues better. Let's get talking now. I have joining me the president of the Association of the University Lecturers, Professor Emmanuel Oshodeke. He joins us here live in our Abuja studio. Thank you so much, Prof, for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
The other day we were trying to speak to you on virtually, but the connection was
raining
bad.
heavily in my place.
Oh, it was raining in Umuaria.
Yes.
Now, I guess you are very tired by now, fighting the federal government over this matter.
Well,
almost 200 days now. Is there a possible end in sight?
What we are doing is sacrifice we have to make for this country called Nigeria. Because a Nigerian with a collapsed universities education, it's a collapsed country, and we're almost there. So we will not be tired. We ensure that this system works.
So on the 1st of August, you said you extended the strike by 4 weeks.
Yes.
2 weeks is gone now. 2 weeks left in the 4 weeks that you have given.
2 weeks, yes.
Is there any communication from the government?
Well, we've not had any serious communication, although they have invited us for a meeting on one issue tomorrow, which is the issue of renegotiation. You know, there are 7 issues while we're on strike. They are inviting us for discussion on issue of renegotiation tomorrow. We don't know what they are coming with.
Renegotiation of what?
Renegotiation of the 2009 agreement.
Okay.
Which is one of the issues that started, this process started in 2017.
Of the payment
February.
of your wages.
It's not wages, you see, they are reduced to wages. It's not wages. It has to do with the system.
Accumulation and...
No. It has to do with funding, the structure, the autonomy, and other issues, and how to raise funds to fund the university. That's where you have the agreement. But the government has seemed to be reduced to just salary alone. Because if they had looked at the whole content of that agreement and implement it, they would not be talking about funding. That was how the issue of TED fund arose in 1992. But they don't bother. This said don't bother. They want to blackmail us with funding with salary. If you look at the agreement, it encompasses funding. It involves the issue of autonomy, because every university in the world is autonomous body. You don't go and suggest university to the public service, the bureaucrats. That's what we're having the problem today. That if a vice chancellor wants to employ a renowned professor that will help him solve a problem, he has to go to the office of the head of service to get permission. And he goes there with the next 2 or 3 months, the man is there, and the man moves to Ghana. Move to another country.
So it's about renegotiation of the entire structure
of the
universities in Nigeria.
That is it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now let's take it one after the other. And I like you to be sincere with Nigerians who are watching tonight.
Sure.
One thing is whether or not there is capacity or the wherewithal to be able to answer to the questions that ASUU is bringing to the table. Another thing is whether or not there is sincerity in all of your negotiation over the last few months with the federal government. Do you see any human angle that has been brought to the table? Do you see any kind of sincerity on the side of government?
Thank you very much. You see, this negotiation started in 2017, and they appointed Babalaki as the chairman of the committee. And we spent more than 2 years, they not doing anything, trying to delay us and what have you, and that committee collapsed when Babalaki was removed as the VC of University of Lagos. Yeah. And Musa Lijibi was appointed as another committee. And when they come to us, the first question we ask, do you have the mandate of government to negotiate this issue with us? That's the first question. And they will say yes. They will agree with us that we are set up by the government, they have the mandate. But we finished with Musa Lijibi in June 2021, May 2021, I'm sorry, May 2021, they were supposed to go back and say, give up permission to sign on your behalf. They didn't come back till we started this strike.
There's another committee, BRICS committee?
Yeah, with this committee, they came back and said they don't accept that conditions and set up bridge committee.
So that's the third committee in about 4 years?
The third chairman, yes, over 5 years. Bridge, we also reached a goal with him. We also asked them, do you have the mandate? They say yes. Now, they said they have consulted with all the various agencies, Salaries and Wages Commission, Ministry of Finance, budget, that they have consulted, and they are coming back. We said, good, let's have, this is what we negotiate with NIMI BRICS. What are your issues with it? And bring the new proposals that you have to. And they brought, and we have it in writing from the government. And that is what one will say is okay, because we didn't want more problem. We said, okay, it's acceptable to us. And that's why it did take us more than 2 weeks to finish. We said it's acceptable to what they brought back to us.
So what happened now? When you accepted it?
They said they are going back again to the government to get permission to sign. Fine. So you know if somebody negotiating, if a lawyer representing you, you will need to get your permission to this. And it went. Till now, they've not come back.
Prof. So
yes. All we are hearing is on Facebook, social media, what have you?
Part of the funding that you are talking about, the government has said it will run into about ₦1 trillion. Now, I'd like you to, I played this for you the last time. This is what the Minister of State for Labour said, Mr. Festus Keyamo. Maybe we can also remind ourselves of what he said, perhaps that the federal government does not have money. I don't know if that goes down well with you and how you are receiving that. I don't know if we can remind ourselves about. Okay, so we'll play that just in a moment. How does that come to you?
It's for me, it is very sad. You see, if you have a will, you can get whatever you want. 30 years ago, nobody believed that you have TV station running for 24 hours. 30 years ago, you didn't believe you have a TV station 40 years ago that will run without stop. CNN, that will, without stop. 30 years ago, nobody believed that person will pick a phone in Nigeria and call somebody in the US. These were done by the academics. And two, issue of financing. If you have a will and you believe education is important, the government will raise any amount to the look, there's a government that are giving 400 billion naira into trader money. So is it trader money, whatever they call it? That is more than what we are asking for. This is a government that I believe what we are trying, they said they need 200 billion to feed school children, to feeding. I don't know who is being fed, I've not seen. But they release 200 billion. That is more than what we are asking for the revitalization fund. So it's not about, it's just people, no.
So you don't think that the government is sincere?
It's not.
You think the money is there?
Let me put it straight. What we have told you is in the disagreement, and it has been there over a long time. Give appropriate budget allocation to your educational system. Forget about the quantum time. Give a percentage. In Ghana, they give no less than 16%. In South Africa, they give no less than 60%. Check all value for Nigeria have the lowest, 5.3. I will say give 50%, as others are doing. Give priority to education. And they will say they don't have money. Let's forget about quantum. Let's look at the reality that education is one thing you are going to look at that will change your country. But they are not interested. That is the problem. It's not about the quantum. As I speak to you, if you watch it in about 1 month, since July, if you find out our exchange rate went high, you are aware. You know why? It's when Nigerian people are paying school fees in foreign countries. It's the massive amount of foreign countries they needed to pay school fees outside the country that you had that massive exchange rate increase. And now it's coming down because they have paid. You are seeing the graduating now. You are seeing their children graduating. So that is it. So it's not only the university that is suffering. The whole country is suffering because of what we are doing. If our system is working like Ghana, like South Africa, like Rwanda, we will not be hustling for exchange rate currency to pay school fees outside the country. That's why that is priority.
Let me take you to another aspect. I mean, you say that we have the money. I mean,
yes, definitely.
If
the will is there, yes.
Yeah, I mean, and I've asked you, this is going to be the third time, whether you think that the government is sincere or not. And I mean, over the last 1 month, when the president said, Minister of Education, go and resolve this matter. Has there been any meeting, any interface between the Minister of Education and ASUU?
We've had informal interface.
There's nothing formal?
There's not formal.
Have you met the Minister of Education physically?
Yes.
Since then?
Yeah, but it's formal. But what we are expecting is tomorrow the formal. But let me, this issue we are talking about, 1992, the new Babangida, we had an agreement like this. And the government said they don't have fund. ASUU tell us how we can raise the fund. And we said, fine. We met and came out with this third fund. And it's easy. Charge the profit of companies operating in Nigeria 2% of their profit. 2%. It came from us. 2% of their profit is to raise the money to fund the university at that time, to increase the funding in university. And the Babangida accepted that. So go and draft the decree. And we did. And that's the origin today of that.
Do you have a possibility to raise more funds?
On this one again, look, in 2019, the Federal Ministry of Education and Federal Ministry of Finance came out with a conference, on a conference on how to raise funds for the university. And we also submitted a paper that we have done before on how to raise funds. And we all accepted. And that document is still there with the Minister of Education. It's there with the Minister of Finance. But now she's implementing it and forgot education. Increase it. Let me finish. Now they are going to start taxing, what do you call it? Taxing this phone call, what the communication, this new tax they're talking about. It's part of our proposal. They should use that account to fund education. Go and check, it's there. But now they are trying to implement it. But they don't think of the author. People who generated that thing, they forgot them. And what's supposed to use for, they forgot it.
I mean, are you...
And these are the things we are talking about. These are how you can fund education.
Are you worried about the dovetailing effect? Because one of the things that the minister raised was that if ASUU raises this, SANU will raise it, NASU will raise it, all other the polytechnics lecturers, all other bodies also will raise it and threaten government. Do you think that is sustainable? That was the question that you raised.
Let me put it this way. Check all over the world. Check all over the world. The only job that is competitive worldwide, you need people from all over the world to do, is lecturing, academics. Two, how much are they paying in such established at NNPC? So established at Central Bank, NIDA. How much are they paying lecturers? How much are they paying the staff? When they were increasing those salaries, did they ever thought that the other MDAs that will come to look for increment? So when you are looking at something, look, you don't need to bulk things together. Nigerian academics are leaving this country. You are aware of that. Doctors are leaving. Because it's a special area. You want to develop your system. And when you are talking about increment of salary, you don't look at others. You look at what is the world average. What is the salary regime for a lecturer in Africa? These are what you look at.
I mean, would you suggest that maybe the federal government divests its ownership of some of these universities? Maybe to private bodies or to other... Because the question is whether or not federal government has been able to effectively run these universities. If not, maybe there should be a new thinking about the ownership of these institutions.
No. This our money is Nigerians' money. This money we're talking about is not the president's money. It's not the senator's money. It's Nigerians' money. And every Nigerian child have a right to education.
But do you think that the private institutions or private universities are better run than the public universities?
Look, let me tell you, and you can check. Go and check the private universities and compare them to UI, BUK, Kano. Go and check them. Let me give you an example. Today, when we were in school and we have good private universities, we're well funded. When things were working well, even in the primary secondary schools, JAM never gave a cutoff point of less than 180, 200. Today they're taking 120. Because the private people have bastardized the secondary primary school. So that people cannot pass again to enter university. You now take person who failed JAM and admit in private universities. And these people who fail, who score 120, 130 in private university, they are the one coming out with first class. Where's the problem? Cash and carry. You are looking for market. And the best way to market your university is to produce first class. But in the government universities, the standard are adhered to. So what I'm saying is, look, where can Ghana run their university? Ghana, we say in 1980s, early 80s, we say Ghana must go, is it not? Ghana must go. How are they running our university and Ghana cannot do the same? In South Africa, how are they running their universities? In Germany, because people say America and whatever. In Germany, how are they running their university? People say in America, they pay school fees. Let me ask you something. If you're an American and you're a Briton, if you lose your job today, government takes care of your pay. Is it not true? Is it happening in Nigeria? So what I see now that you now have a school, a university, where the son of the rich will attend, and the son of ordinary people will not attend.
Let me ask about the IPPIS.
Yes.
And in 2014, there is a document that has surfaced now, a letter from the president of ASUU at the time, addressed to the president of ASUU, signed by the Accountant General of the Federation at the time, saying that IPPIS should be integrated. Where did things go wrong? From 2014, that's the letter right there on the screen.
No, if you read it very well, that's not what it says. Where it says that IPPIS cannot take care of university, read it fully, you see it. The IPPIS cannot accommodate university, and that there should be a tripartite party made up of government, the unions, and one agency there to work out a model, a solution that can accommodate universities. Read the last paragraph.
The second to that. He said one of the joint decision reached is the need to set up a tripartite committee of the labor unions in the university, ASUU, NASU, SANU, and NAT, the representatives of the pro-chancellors and federal government, to develop alternative solutions that will achieve the noble objectives of IPPIS and at the same time accommodate the peculiarities of the Nigerian universities.
That was 2014. That was the origin. When they came with these IPs, we told them it cannot accommodate university. And that time they are cathedral then. And the person in charge of IPs, when we met and finished discussing, and when they found out the weakness in IPs, in terms of university, they agreed we should have a different solution. And they say, each union bring 3 nominees. Government will bring their own, and then we'll develop alternative that can take care of the universities. In 2014, we sent our name. You can see them there. A.B. Bafa, Abdul, and Gungula. From that time to 2017, they never returned to us. They didn't do it. Just when that lady retired.
But UTAS, as far as universities lecturers are concerned, is ready. And
it's ready. And
UTAS is, of course, the university lecturers developed
it, and it's the best. My happiness today about this strike is that for the first time they have tested IPs. For the first time, it came in 2006. It was never tested. We were using it. You know why? Because the minister then of finance brought it. Who came from World Bank, brought it and said you must use it. Untested. You know that minister of finance, untested, until the committee set up, chaired by the head chief of staff. We all agreed that we should set the 3 to test and take the best one for universities. The 3 was tested. They are afraid to release the result now. But I'm happy that the minister of communication and digital economy have been able to come out to say that there were errors
in the
and I commend him for that. And there are errors in IPs, multiple errors. And we have.
But what's the percentage of tests of UTAS?
We have done that, yours? And from what? Let them release the result. It will tell us. UTAS came distant first.
In all of the payment platforms.
In out of the 3.
So NASU can use that platform.
Can SANU use it? University. Let me also tell you that we are SANU, NASU, we don't have problem again. We are unity now that we.
You understand that there is a faction of university lecturers who are insisting.
We don't have any faction. We don't.
They're already talking that they want to go back to the classroom.
You see, whoever is that place doing that, they are trying to use them against us. You see, for you to have a union in a country like this that can come to you and speak, it has to be registered.
Let me allow you to listen to Mr. Festus Keyamo again. Let's refresh our memories about what he said, and I'd like you to anchor on that, on a response on what he said.
ASUU now put their percentage of their salary, some increase as to more than 100% to 100 and something percent. It now came up to an additional 560 billion naira on top of the normal 412 billion that the federal government was already paying for using to pay their salaries and their emoluments. They added another 560 billion to that bill. And then that does not even include things like their hazard allowance and all those other little allowances. All those allowances also came to another additional 170 billion. And so the entire bill came up to 1.2 trillion or thereabouts. Meanwhile, you had before, even before this situation, a situation where the federal government was already spending 50% of its overheads on salaries to pay them. That was the previous bill, 50% of its overheads regarding salaries and emoluments to pay university teachers, their wages and allowances. So what the federal government did when they brought this, proposal from the NIMI-BRICS committee, they said, well, this is unrealistic. You know what? You need to bring in other, they still went back to the same position where they had to bring in other critical stakeholders.
That's the Minister of State for Labour, Mr. Festus Keyamo. I'd like you to anchor and give us your final thought on all of this. Where do we go from here? We are tired. We want the students to go back to the classrooms. We want our education sector to get back on its feet. What must be done now?
One, the issue of IPPIS and UTAS have to put to rest because the tests have been done. As I agree with the Chief of Staff, UTAS will be implemented, should be implemented to cover the university. Two, you see, if this government is serious, this strike will not last 1 or 2 weeks. If they have come to, if you recall, the federal government was going to go on strike in November. We didn't start it because NIREC came in and intervened. NIREC, and we considered to them. They met with the president. He set up a committee headed by Chief of Staff that should resolve this thing quickly. And the world saw it in the press. They did nothing. The president set up this Muzali committee. We met with them, finished, nothing. They didn't come back. They set up this Nimibris committee. It's now more than 3 months. 2 months, we finished negotiating with them. They didn't come back. President directed the Minister of Education, finish within 2 weeks. 2 weeks has passed, they didn't come back. So we are not. Let me tell you what they are doing. We feel sad because what they are going to do now, if we resume tomorrow, in the next 4 years, I cannot go on leave. You know why? I'm going to cover the backlog of work that I should have done while on strike. If you look at the past 50 years, I've not ever gone on leave. You can check in my university. For those times we are on strike, when we come back, what will do the backlog? In my university, Michael Okpara, you can go and check. We have not lost 1 year. We've not lost one set of students. We will come back and do the backlog of work. But when we come back, we will start 2021-22 session. When we finish 2022, let me tell you, a year in a university is maximum of 32 weeks, 16 weeks per semester. So you have another 20-something weeks that you're going to use for your leave, for your research, and what have you. Now we sacrifice all those things now to cover the backlog. So we are not happy. When we finish now, they deliberately release it, delay for 16 6 months.
Nigerians are definitely pained by what is happening. So it's a national embarrassment.
We are pained.
What the minister said there,
yes.
What's your brief reaction on that?
Well, the minister, I think people now, when they are appointed as a spokesman for anybody, you start saying anything you like. They don't think. What he's saying is not reasoning. Is he a minister of finance? Is he the minister of finance? Two, is the minister, have you attended any of our meetings? You see, these people, by the time with that politics, and this minister was one of those who were, when you have politics, you start talking, you don't look at your data. They should produce the data, he should produce the data of what he's talking about.
From what give us assurances, Prof, yes, that you're going into that meeting with an open mind tomorrow, yourself and your colleagues?
If we go to that meeting tomorrow and government said what you negotiated, what do you call it, collective bargaining, what we are willing to sign,
Thank you so much, Prof. We are hoping that it will come and you and the government will come around the table and resolve this. Perhaps this week, let everything be resolved. This is too much for our nation. We have an economic problem. Education is on its knees. This is too much. We cannot bear it any longer.
Why we're having this economic problem is because we don't want to do the needful. We are neglecting our education. And that's why today you don't have refineries, you don't have companies working. They are all broken down because you don't want to fix your educational system. And if they start working, your system will work.
Speak to Truth Power when you get to that table tomorrow. And let things be resolved. Thank you so much, Prof, for coming. We'll take a break, everyone. And when we return, I will be getting views on the election in Kenya, the lessons for Nigeria. We're going into the 2023 election. After 6 days, Kenya was able to announce a winner in its election. Can Nigeria do better? What must we do? We'll learn from that experience. After now, join us again. Everyone, with us, William Ruto, Kenyan vice president, has been declared as the winner of the country's presidential election. Ruto defeated ex-Prime Minister Raila Odinga in the keenly contested race. Kenya's Independent Electoral and Boundary Commission, IEBC, announced the eagerly awaited results of the election earlier today. Ruto emerged victorious after polling 50.49% of the entire vote cast to defeat Odinga, its closest rival, who polled for the 8.85% of the votes. Shortly before his announcement, 4 out of 7 IEBC commissioners said they could not recognize the result President Reagan fears in a closely watched poll in the East African political and economic powerhouse. Ruto is a 55-year-old rags to riches businessman who had characterized the vote as a battle between ordinary and those who are hustling. Well, who had ruled Kenya since independence from Britain in 1963. A lot of lessons definitely out there for Nigeria, and that's what we're bringing into our local politics. What are the lessons for Nigeria? The route of victory. The almost 6 days of waiting after the ballot was cast, and in fact, we're being told that most of those results are being uploaded from the polling unit. What happened? Lessons for Nigeria. Let's get talking. Those that were on the ground, who understand Nigeria's politics and election, are here in our studio for us. I have Mr. Samson Itodo, Executive Director of Yaga Africa. He was an observer in that election in Kenya. Thanks so much, Mr. Itodo, for coming tonight.
Always a delight, and good evening.
And also Mr. Unjoku Emmanuel, Director, Democracy and Governance Connected Development Code. Thank you so much. He was also an observer in that election. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me, Michelle.
Let's get to it. What happened, Samson? 6 days of waiting after, yeah, it's almost 6 days, isn't it?
That's right.
Of waiting for that result. And we've been told that the results were transmitted digitally into, if they had a server, like was debated in Nigeria. What do you think went wrong?
Well, I think it's not what went wrong. It's about whether the outcome as announced by the Electoral Commission reflects the ballot cast. I think based on, the observation of this entire process, the election was successful. It was peaceful, yes, amidst some skirmishes. And so if you're going to evaluate the entire credibility of the process, you look at the pre-election process. And most international observers, in fact, the one that I was part of, the NDI and IRI election observation mission, did recognize the fact that these particular elections, from the voting to the counting process, reflects the democratic standards, but also on the collation bid, the final report of the NDI mission is yet to be released. But if you ask, are there key sort of lessons? First, these results were transmitted, from the polling units. The Form 34 were the most credible and authentic results. And those results were uploaded on the platform. And to that extent, the results declared by the chairman of the commission is a reflection of that. There have been allegations of malpractices, but I tell you that there has not been any evidence provided by those who are making that allegation that the election was rigged. In the build-up to the election, there were last-minute judicial pronouncements, which is similar, to what we experience in Nigeria. There were questions on which register, the state of the manual register, whether the manual register were going to be used for the election. And that last-minute judgment issued by the Court of Appeal did create a bit of confusion because the Electoral Commission had insisted that all the voters were going to be accredited electronically. And in some cases, in a substantial number of polling stations that were observed, the polling officials strictly followed that. But this election is where you have government in opposition and opposition in government as the actors in this case. The deputy vice president was not endorsed, and he's not a candidate of the sitting president, even though he was on the ballot. You had, Raila Odinga, who was the candidate of the current president, Uhuru Kenyatta, due to the coalition, or what we call, the popular handshake, where they formed this coalition party. But I say that we need to urge the Kenyan people, particularly those in opposition, to maintain the peace. I listened to the president-elect's remark, and he indeed, in his speech, tried to be a nationalist, and I think he should be encouraged. And for individuals or candidates across all the elections, if they have issues, they should resort to the civil and legal means. And this controversy about the 4 commissioners of the commission and whether that nullifies the declaration. Again, as a lawyer, and I say that there's a reason why within the electoral legal framework, it vests the responsibility of declaring results on the chief returning officer. and in an individual. And in this case, it is the chairman and Chebukati who has that responsibility. Again, another, window has been opened for legal fireworks, and I hope that the actors will take to civil and legal means and not cause any chaos or political instability within that country.
Emmanuel, let me come to you. You also were there. You've seen how elections are conducted in Nigeria, and tonight's program is basically the lessons. I mean, this is going to perhaps be the closest election in Africa to the Nigeria's election, and there must be some lessons that we need to take away, and that's the reason why we're discussing this tonight. So, give me an understanding of what to make of what you saw on the ground. Let's take it from the issue of the ballot, the voting process. People were on the queue, similar to what you see in Nigeria. How seamless and what lessons in terms of the logistics of the balloting and the election logistics, what lessons can we take away from Kenya?
So first, let me start from saying that I think with the declaration of this result today, but I think this is a good day for democracy in Africa. Samson has given you a bit of background on the actors that ran for this election, as to being in government, the president having a handshake with the key opposition figure, and going back as far back as the first president of country Kenya being the same Kenyatta, and his deputy president being Raila Odinga's father. So these are the people who will see as the authority. And this Ruto that ran for, this is his first time running for office, and we can see the outcome of this result. Now, talking about this election in the context of Nigeria.
Sorry, same party will hold sway in the next administration. That's what it looks like, isn't it?
No, no, that's not what it is. No, that's not
what happened. That I'm asking.
So you know that the president himself, and I think the handshake that Samson talked about was all about trying to ensure peace in the coming elections. So the president having a handshake and throwing the weight of the incumbent president with the opposition party. People typically felt that, it's game over in this election. But we are seeing the vice president, who the president didn't support, winning both his boss, who is the president, and winning the key opposition figure in the past decades. Mind you, Raila Odinga has been running for office since 1997.
Absolutely.
97, 2007, 2013, 2017, and even this is his fifth run in this election, having the support of the president, having the support of the Kenyatta Uhuru, and this has happened. So in the contest...
And it's a close election, 50,
50, yeah, so the law says it must have 50% plus one. So, but it's close. When you look at the numbers itself, Raila, Ruto is leading led this nation with over 200,000 votes, which is reasonable. Given how close, when the tallying was going on, they were pretty close, 30,000, 40,000. But seeing him lead with over 211,000 votes, that's something good. Now, in the context of elections in Kenya and Nigeria, let me say this. The election in Kenya and election in Nigeria are very similar. Basically, almost the same thing. The same polling units. When you go to a polling unit, every polling unit, must not have more than 700 persons per polling unit with one beavers. So they use the same beavers.
So they use beavers.
Yes, they use beavers, but they call it Kim kits. They call it their Kim kits. But it's the same beavers.
What's the similarity, or what's the difference?
The same thing. Does the same thing.
Basically. It does accreditation.
Yes, it does biometric. Even though their law still leaves a loophole that if the Kim kits, which is the beavers in this conversation, if the beavers fails to biometrically verify you, there's still a room for you to do manual accreditation, which there is no room for that in Nigeria, which is a good thing. So the Kim kits worked pretty well in most of the polling units where we went to, and even the reports that came from...
I mean, so that's one thing that we need to put in our conversation tonight, is the fact that if we think beavers is foolproof, and we're going 100% to beavers, what happens in places where there are security challenges, areas where networks are bad, and we cannot use beavers on the day? What kind of challenge do you see there?
So there's no challenge. So first of all, people think beavers is an online device. Beavers is an offline device. Beavers is a simple Android offline device with the data of registered voters in the polling unit having been preloaded. So you just come, and with your data is already there. It pulls out your data at the point of biometric verification and verifies and accredits you.
There's no issue with network. You don't need to connect online.
No, you don't need to. But at the point of transmitting your result,
move to
at
a
the
network
point of polling unit, you transmit. Knowing fully well, just like your regular WhatsApp messages does, if you send a message from where there's no network, once it comes to anywhere where there's little network, it drops. It drops. And that's why we've seen in the state election and national election, by 10 p.m. of the day of those elections, close to 98 or 99% of the result had already dropped. There are places in the Ekiti state and Osun state where there are no network, but the results, 99% of the result dropped by 10 o'clock.
So let me bring the conversation back to Samson. Before I go into the digital manner in which this election was transmitted, so in fact, some people had forgotten that the election held in Kenya and was waiting for almost a week after the election. I'm not sure what will happen in Nigeria if we had to wait for that long for the result to be announced. I don't know what's going to happen. So quick one before I go to this question. Was there a shutdown of movement or activities in Kenya during the election day?
No, absolutely.
That's the difference in our...
There was no shutdown.
So people can move freely?
It was a public holiday.
Okay.
Yeah, people could move freely within the city and as well as the county.
No curfew?
There was no restriction of movement.
There were no such restriction of movement.
So what culturally or psychologically or sociologically rather, what is the difference? What could allow Kenya to do that and we not be able to do that?
I think
can we afford it in Nigeria to allow people to move around? I mean, on election day, Nigeria shuts down its borders externally and internally.
No, I think that it's about the consensus of the political class. The reason why this policy is imposed, it's because of the desperation of our political class. The politicians in Kenya were also desperate. There's nothing different. But what they did was they resolved that they didn't want a repeat of previous conflict and crisis that we have. And so for the presidential candidates who are running in the Nigerian election, there is need for consensus that one, they will not engage in violent rhetoric. They won't encourage any form of violence because in the build-up to this election, the actors focused on the issues and they weren't, fueling those embers of conflicts and those fault lines of tribalism and religion. But Shehu, you made a point about lessons. And I think that first, on the logistical point of view, it's important to underscore that when you talk about 6 days, that cannot happen in Nigeria. So there's something we're doing right with our results management process. It may not be perfect, but compared to Kenya, I think our results collation and transmission process, it's better and it needs to be improved. And that's why you have technology. What happened in Kenya is when you move from the polling station, you go to the constituency. So at the polling station, you have the form 34A. At the constituency level, you have the 34B. And then from the constituency level, you now take the results to the National Tallying Center where the results are verified with the results already transmitted from the polling station. In our case, we have transmission from the polling units to the IREV, but you also need to manually transmit the results from the polling station to the ward to the local government in that regard. If there's one thing we need to learn, is the need for INEC, beyond uploading the Form EC8As at the polling units, INEC should also upload Form EC8Bs at the ward collation level to increase the level of transparency. The other critical issues around prisoners voting. I was in the prisons in Kenya.
So they voted?
Prisoners voted at this election. And there's no reason why we shouldn't have prisoners also voting, because they do have their rights.
Was there diaspora voting in Kenya?
Yes, there was also diaspora voting. They explored that, but for only 12 countries. Because this is the first time they were experimenting.
Some people will say Kenya is just about 50 million people, about 20 million voters, 22 million or thereabout. So maybe they can explore those kind of options. Kenya's voting population is just about Lagos, Kano, and Bauchi put together. Theirs may not be as complex as our situation, but
there's complexity everywhere. We shouldn't use this as an excuse that
we're talking about lessons. And I'm saying the more complex. The more people that you have to administer, the more complexity.
But complexities can be managed. We just need to be courageous. Because I see no reason why Nigerians in diaspora are not voting. What did it take Kenya?
We can start by not shutting our borders for the next election.
No, but it's not about the borders.
It's about
the voting rights. But it's just this geopolitics that seems to be informing how how we make public policy.
All right, Emmanuel, I mean, if you look at the closeness of the poll politically, what do you see that kind of closeness in Nigeria's election? In fact, those people would say maybe Kenya election may not be decided at the first ballot with the way things went in the first day, second day, and third day. I mean, political watchers thought, man, this might be a second ballot decision that will have to be made.
So frankly, from our station room, everybody was a bit bothered thinking there would be a runoff, given how close the polls were going, But at the same time, everybody wanted this thing to be done with. Because frankly, everybody was exhausted. All the people that participated were already exhausted. They were actually just praying and hoping that this thing gets done with. And frankly, from situations we are getting, reports we are getting from our station, people are happy. But then, there's still this tension in Kenya right now. So everybody is waiting for Raila's speech at this point in time. In the past elections, what have caused problem in Kenya is
post-election matter.
At the point when Raila gives a speech to either accept or to reject the results. As we speak right now, in some areas where Raila has dominance, like in Kibera, the biggest slum in Nairobi, there's already protests ongoing in Kenya right now.
Do you see, Emmanuel, do you see, Emmanuel, that it's going to be a tight race similar to this in Nigeria in 2023?
Yes,
you think it should be tight?
I believe so. I believe so because of technology, because of beavers. So, the beavers has given power to the people right now. So, I can tell you that the key persons running for presidency right now in Nigeria, none of them can come out and confidently say it's going to be a walkover. So, for
those who are saying in Nigeria that there might be a runoff in this election, do you see that kind of thing happening
in Nigeria? No, I don't think so. I don't see a runoff happening in Nigeria.
We anchor on the issue of digital transmission, which is being an issue. It caused a lot of stir in the last election, whether or not there was a server. And that was a big issue from the trial process of the election to the appeal, and in fact up to the Supreme Court, where they felt, look, this cannot stand. And INEC talked to his gun and said, look, there was anything like server. Something. Digital transmission of results is the next step.
Our ERAD, the Election Results Analysis Dashboard, whilst just following the results, they said, wow, we've got a huge responsibility.
By 7 p.m. we knew the winner of the election. From our studio, we already knew who won the election.
For the general elections, the Election Results Analysis Dashboard is going to be playing a critical role, like it played in Osun, like he played in Ekiti, and we should urge Nigerians to expect that the ERAD will be there to keep watch over the process, and the beavers and electronic transmission of results is a welcome development in our political process, and it will enhance the transparency of the process. But rest assured that the ERAD, which is Channels TV and Yaiga Africa's project, it's going to be deployed for the next elections.
Absolutely.
And we're already getting ready for that.
Guaranteed,
and I'm very excited about that.
Emmanuel, your final word on the digital. I mean, that was perhaps a joker that saw this election in Kenya. Could it bid for Nigeria?
Yes, it is. And I tell Nigerians, if there's ever been a time that you should participate in voting in an election, that time is in 2023 general election, with the introduction of the new Electoral Act, with the beavers, with the transmission of results. So this is the right time for you to participate, because I believe with all the efforts and all the engagement, all the commitments, that the votes in 2023 general elections is going to count, and our processes are going to be better than what we are seeing in Kenya right now.
Emmanuel, thank you so much for coming, Director at Code on Democracy Projects, and Samson Itodo is the Executive Director of Yaiga Africa. One thing that we can guarantee you is that ERAD, Channels Television, and Yaiga will stick to it. You will see the result, real time. It will happen. The power is in your hand. Channels Television will make that happen, and it will be a very good experience for Nigeria. That we can guarantee, as far as the Lord allows us to live beyond that time and beyond. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us tonight. I'm Sean Kimale. Bye-bye.